Segment on Speak called Fair Play, where my guests get to turn about those tables and ask me a question about my own career in the arts. Now, with almost 40 years as, oh my gracious, as pretty much everything from a filmmaker to a novelist, working with games, working with music, and also being the CFO of the 501c. Oh, Lord, it's been such a week. Being the CFO of a 501c3 nonprofit Blue Legacy that works to elevate, educate, and empower artisans from all walks of life, I can pretty much talk about the creative industry for hours on end and quite joyfully. So, Lauren, you have a question for me today that I do not know what it is. Lauren Patzer is the author of Dissidence Junction and From the Shadows, among others, and he also writes under Artemis Withers. Lauren, what is your question for me today?
So we touched a little bit upon writer's block.
Yes.
Now you've been a writer for 40 years?
About 40 years.
About 40 years?
About, yeah.
Have you experienced writer's block? And how do you deal with it? What different ways do you deal with it?
Well, now I don't want to repeat anything that that I've said in any other interview, but I think that it's probably important for us to define. People say, "How long have you been a writer?" "Oh, since birth."
Yeah.
The doctor handed me a pencil and I immediately wrote a poem for my mama, or whatever it is. Yeah. I was in therapy at 10 years old, dealing with abduction and rape.
Okay.
And the therapist said, "Write." And what the therapist didn't understand was that at 10 years old, I could barely read. I had my own alphabet.
Okay.
I had my own marks that meant words. I had gone to an open concept elementary school.
Okay.
I had been pulled out of 2 different kindergartens and then wound up not attending kindergarten. So then went 1st grade through 6th grade at this open concept alternative elementary school where they didn't believe in phonics.
Okay.
They believed in, you see like the word tree, T-R-E-E. You
Right.
memorize it. And if you memorize it, you get it on an index card. And the index card gets clipped on a jump ring.
Okay.
Like a keychain, a ring.
Yep.
And you get to keep it. But every day, you have to go to one of the teachers in the building, and if they stop you, you have to read all your keywords.
Okay.
And if you can't tell them what one of the keywords is, they get to take it.
Wow. Oh, goodness.
And boy, I mean, I liked my collection I thought it was a really cool thing. But, you can't have every word you should be able to read by 6th grade on a jump ring.
No.
But I was a child that very much wanted to listen to authority at that point. And so I did as told, and I started to write. And I wound up writing 50,000 words. Now, some of these words weren't even real words, but I could read them to you, and they were words. Okay. So eventually, I dictated everything, and it was typed up into English, because what I was writing in was certainly not standard English.
Gotcha.
So I always say, I count myself as being a writer from that first 50,000 words on.
Absolutely.
So at 47 now, there we go. In my life, I have not experienced writer's block. But
interesting. Okay.
What I have experienced is an inability to find the time in my life to write for myself beyond writing for work. one of the other authors asked me, I know that you took like a 10-year hiatus from writing, and I had to like very gently clarify. I'm like, well, during that 10 years, I wrote more than 100 screenplays, the majority of which were produced.
Yeah.
And I also wrote stage plays, all of which were produced. And I'm like,
that's not technically taking a break from writing.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, and I think, his face was kind of like, wait, what? And I'm like, but what I wasn't writing was what I love. And you're like, what do you love? How? It's not writer's block if you just can't write what you love. And I'm like, well, for me it is, that hiatus for me was taking a break from writing science fiction, because to me, that's everything.
Okay.
That's literally everything.
Nice.
So I can say, I'm hired like as a pen for hot, right?
Right.
I've never written a film for me. I have no interest in writing film. I don't think that, but I have written multiple feature films and and hundreds of shorts and ultra shorts for work, because I am assigned to write said film. I have written poetry for myself. I've written some stage plays for myself, but most of those are also, I am assigned to write them. I would say it so dramatically comes down to this. I'm not an inspiration writer, even with my science fiction.
Yeah.
I am at 5 o'clock from, that is absolutely not true.
Yeah.
I'm just using an easy number.
Yeah, okay.
From 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., I am writing. And my goal is 15,000 words, because I have this deadline, and I have this mortgage, and I have this medication that isn't covered by insurance for this kiddo, or I have this pet that needs this dental exam,
Right.
or whatever it is. That has been my driving force, because I went to one alternative school after another, and no one ever talked to me about the SATs.
Yeah.
No high school counselor ever took me aside and went, what college do you want to apply to?
Yeah.
It was, oh, that's that little girl. She's that writer. She's that protege that could barely read, could barely write, and now she writes a novel every month throughout the school year and pulls in her lessons. But I'm like, it was like just like this. I had to be writing.
Yeah.
If I wasn't writing, I was getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And so I think writer's block to me how to cure it is, as someone who's very, very much, I like outlines, and I like, I love your summary, the plot summary, is if you're someone who likes structure, then create your structure. And if you fail on Monday, well, Tuesday's a new day.
Yep.
Do it on Tuesday. You fail Tuesday, fine, do it Wednesday. Don't do well, I failed the first of this month, I'll wait till the first of next month.
No.
Every minute is a new minute.
Yes.
But if you're someone who doesn't like structure, then you have to ask yourself, what inspires you? Now, I would say my biggest failing as a publisher is that I have to, and I know it is a flaw, but it's also me, is that I have no patience for, I just wasn't inspired to write, and that's why I didn't meet my deadline. And it was actually, that came to quite the head during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because I had to realize, wow, I cannot expect these grown folks, but see, even the language I'm using, though, I can hear it in myself, it's, I'm judging, but I was like, what are you doing? The world is on fire. And before any vaccines were even really realistically on the horizon, and then they came out, and only certain populations could get them, and this kind of thing. And so I think that broke that a little bit for me. I do have more patience with people now.
Yeah.
But mostly I would need to take a step back, and Brianne, as senior editor, would have to step in and say, no, it's okay. I'll take this from here. Because I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Do you not have bills? They're like, well, maybe they're not paying. Maybe they have a day job. And I'm like, yeah, I have a day job too. But I know that no matter what my day job makes me, again, I have the privilege of having started incredibly young, having success when I was very young, which I know very well was a result of that marketability of a child. Here's a child writing a novel. Everybody.
Incredible. Yeah.
You know, because when I'll sit down with an author and I'll say, okay, let's plan your marketing strategy, right?
Yeah.
What's going to be that in? What's your buzz? What's your tagline? What's the buzz about you? How are we going to get reporters excited about you? You know, I mean, how easy is that? She's 16 and she wrote it when she was 10. Come on. I'm like, that's a given. Yeah, it's like, duh, was a bestseller.
She wrote it.
Yeah.
She wrote her own marketing.
Right, exactly. And I always say, you always have to, look at the era. It was an era when America was really changing. Ellen DeGeneres had just come out. It was like this big, cool thing. And I had 2 moms. Yeah. So, it was that kind of thing. So I always say, whenever someone asks me about writer's block, I always think, really, they're asking less of me and more like, for people out there, when we experience writer's block, what should we do? And I always say, just ask yourself, what kind of person am I? What would make it so that I could write? And if someone says, well, I need quiet and I need to go away to an Airbnb in a beautiful location, and I'm like, no, I meant realistically as a human being with other responsibilities, what's going to help you write?
Yeah.
I personally try to encourage people to not create these elaborate writing rituals where everything has to be just so. Yeah. Because I'm like, there's always going to be that day when, the F key sticks or the computer you love so much dies or, something like that. So I don't know if that exactly answers, but I guess that's as honest as I can be with it.
I said, do you experience
That's fair.
writer's block?
Okay, that's true.
So
now, during our Speak interview, Lauren, you touched on something, and I want to circle all the way back to that.
Okay.
You talked about, and I love this because I've heard this before, and I think it's really a wonderful approach. You got a computer that on purpose is not very powerful. You can't play games on it.
Right.
It's stripped away of distraction. And you say, well, it can go on the internet.
Yeah.
And I love that because of my education, my educational background, my spelling, and I know people find that funny, and I'm like, no. I'm not saying I casually misspell things. My spelling, it's that atrocious sounds funny. No, it's just like, it's so off that Microsoft Word or
can't tell what it is
Open
you're trying
Office
to spell.
Can't exactly.
Gotcha.
It's that horrible dichotomy of someone who has a big vocabulary in their brain, but can't decode that into the properly spelled word.
Right.
So I always argue that I have to have the internet to spell.
Yeah.
Because so far, I haven't found a spell check as good as Google.
Interesting.
And people say, well, do you ever write in Google Docs? And I'm like, well, we live rurally.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes a lag and the net is not very strong. So not yet. Maybe when fiber optic or whatever it is out here or something like that. But so I smiled when you said that during the interview because I'm like, oh yeah, no, don't put me on a computer without net, because I mean I'll turn something into Brianne and she would be like, you're kidding me, right?
What in the world is this?
What literally is this word? That word is supposed to be distinguished? That word is supposed to be dichotomy? Are you serious? Love you, hon, but no. But I do like that. How do you use the internet to write at all?
I do. I'm often on there to look words up. Yeah. Just to say, all right, I want to use this word. Is that what it means?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, for other people, it's like, okay, just put the words down. If I put a word down and I'm not sure if it means the right thing, it's bugging me 3 sentences later.
Yes.
And I have to go back and I have to fix it. Otherwise, my brain's pulling back and will not let me continue with the process. So I have to have it there for looking up words. I look up places. If I I want this to take place in this place. Well, can I get a visual? So you get the put up the town map or the town Wikipedia or whatever, and you get visuals of that place and so on and so forth. Maybe sometimes you dive down a rabbit hole. Yeah. But you get a sense of that place and that thing, and that helps inform your brain. Okay, this is how I want to write this scene. Yeah. So it's places, people, names. especially for From the Shadows, Rage, the first story.
Yeah.
Where the gal's in she's the werewolf, but she goes over to the Bakaram in Nigeria. I needed names. I needed things to make that authentic.
Yes, absolutely.
I've never been in Nigeria.
Right.
I don't know what Bakaram. And then and of course they have religious ideals behind that and what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of go teach myself a little bit
research
about that. Yeah, just enough to where this makes it believable and work for this story. And so it's an invaluable tool.
I agree. You have to have some self-restraint, I think, as a writer.
Yes. When
you do have a machine that you're writing on a machine that has internet, because of course you can't allow yourself to go too deeply down those rabbit holes. And especially someone who I think I've always loved to learn.
Yeah.
And I love having just an encyclopedic knowledge of, whatever, just a little of this, a little of that, a lot of this, a lot of that. But I have to go, now is not the time for that. Remember the mortgage, remember the mortgage, remember the mortgage. And then back we go. Well, if you would like to find my full speak interview with Lauren Patzer / Artemis Withers and other episodes of Speak and Fair Play, please check our channel. Thank you again, Lauren, for coming, and thank you for watching.